In the early 16th century, deep within the forests of the Maya region, there lived a small community far from the reach of any major civilization. Among them was Jaguar Paw, a young hunter who spent his days tracking game alongside his father, Flint Sky, the chief of their village. Their people lived in peace with no desire to conquer or harm others. One day during a hunt, Jaguar Paw, his father, and the other men pursued a tapir. The animal was quick, weaving through the trees and forcing them to work together. But the hunters had prepared a trap, and soon enough the tapir was caught. There was excitement and celebration. Jaguar Paw began preparing the animal and shared its organs with his fellow tribesmen. But he set aside one special piece for a man named Blunted, who was often teased because he had not yet fathered a child. Jaguar Paw claimed that this particular part of the animal could help with fertility. Without hesitation, Blunted swallowed it whole. The entire hunting party burst into laughter at the ridiculous sight. Realizing he had been tricked, embarrassment quickly turned into anger, and Blunted nearly fought Jaguar Paw. Flint Sky stepped in to calm him and offered a traditional remedy, a paste made from leaves. He explained that this was his secret to having 10 children, but he warned that the paste was strong and meant only to be applied, not eaten. Before the group could return home, a noise from the brush drew their attention. From the shadows emerged a group of refugees. Their faces were exhausted and filled with fear. Instinctively, the hunters prepared for danger, but Flint Sky held them back. The leader of the refugees explained that their land had been taken, their village destroyed, and they were simply searching for a place to go. Flint Sky allowed them to pass. As children and elders stepped out from the trees, the depth of their fear was clear. Jaguar Paw wanted to learn more, but his father stopped him. On the journey home, Flint Sky warned the group not to spread the story. To Jaguar Paw, he gave a deeper lesson. Fear, he said, is a sickness. If left to grow, it can consume an entire community. And in that moment, the shadow of what was coming began to take shape. This is Apocalypto. Life in the village continued as usual. Families welcomed the hunters back with warmth. Blunted, however, immediately faced the scolding of his mother-in-law, who demanded that he finally give her a grandchild. Fueled by confidence from the leaf paste, he accepted the challenge, stepping into the hut determined to prove himself. Meanwhile, Jaguar Paw returned to his own home, greeted by his pregnant wife Seven and their young son, Turtle Runs. Peace filled the moment, but it did not last long. Blunted suddenly burst from his hut, running in panic. The leaf paste he applied was no remedy at all. It was part of the joke. Laughter erupted across the entire village. Children, elders, everyone joined in. And in the middle of their difficult lives, that laughter meant something. It reminded them that even in a hard world, joy could still bring them together. That night, the village gathered around the fire. They listened to stories from the elders, danced, shared drinks, and celebrated together. Music and laughter filled the air. But Jaguar Paw could not relax. The memory of the refugees they met earlier still lingered in his mind. Eventually, the unease followed him into sleep, and he fell into a nightmare. In the dream, the same refugee appeared again, this time urging him to run. Before dawn, that warning became real. From the darkness of the trees, armed Maya warriors, led by a man known as Zero Wolf, closed in around the village. They moved silently, slipping between the huts, ready to strike while everyone slept. Jaguar Paw's nightmare was now reality. He hurried to wake his wife and child. The attack began in an instant. Shouts filled the night as flames spread through the village. Zero Wolf's warriors showed no mercy. Amid the chaos, Jaguar Paw fought to protect his family. He guided them to an old dry well and helped them climb down, hoping the darkness would keep them hidden. But just as he held the rope, one of the warriors spotted them. There was no time. The rope slipped from his hands, causing his wife and child to slam against the side of the well. He had no choice but to face the attacker, and when the man nearly fell into the well, Jaguar Paw was forced to finish him. With his family hidden below, he made a difficult promise. He would return for them. He tied the rope to a heavy stone, hoping they could use it to climb out once the danger passed. But the destruction around him was overwhelming. Homes burned, bodies lay scattered. His people fought back, but they were no match for the invading warriors. Many were killed, and the survivors were bound as prisoners. In the middle of the chaos, Jaguar Paw saw his father locked in combat with a warrior named Middle Eye. He rushed to help, nearly defeating Middle Eye. But before he could finish the fight, Zero Wolf struck him down from behind. Humiliated, Middle Eye burned with rage. He wanted to kill Jaguar Paw immediately, But Zero Wolf stopped him. He wanted Jaguar Paw alive. That decision only fueled Middle Eye's anger. And in that moment, Jaguar Paw saw his father tied up before him. Without thinking, he called out to him. That small reaction revealed their bond. Middle Eye seized the chance for revenge. In front of Jaguar Paw's eyes, his father was executed. Middle Eye continued to beat Jaguar Paw until he lost consciousness. The entire village was taken as prisoners. Their hands were tied, and they were forced to watch their homes and loved ones destroyed. Children cried, powerless and terrified. Blunted, who was usually teased without mercy, now screamed helplessly as his wife was dragged away. In his fear, Jaguar Paw made one critical mistake. His eyes kept shifting toward the well where his family hid. The warriors noticed. One of them checked the well. Although his wife and child managed to stay out of sight, the rope he tied for them was cut away. Jaguar Paw knew they were now trapped. Without him, they had no way out. Once the village was secured, the surviving prisoners were forced to march away from the ruins of their home. Jaguar Paw moved farther and farther from the place where his family remained hidden. Behind them, abandoned children cried out, trying to follow their parents but unable to catch up. As the captives were forced deeper into the forest, Jaguar Paw saw another group among them. They were the same refugees who had asked to pass through the village just the day before. Now they were bound as prisoners as well. In that moment, Jaguar Paw understood. This was the end of their people. Among the captives was Cocoa Leaf, who had been badly injured. Each step was a struggle for him. But Middle Eye, a warrior known for his cruelty, forced him to keep moving. To make his point, he struck Jaguar Paw, using his suffering as a threat. For the sake of his friend, Cocoa Leaf pushed himself forward, even though his strength was nearly gone. After a long march, they reached a river with a strong current, yet the captives were still forced to cross. On the opposite bank, the children who had been following the group could go no farther. They stood there crying, watching their parents disappear into the trees. The path continued upward along the side of a mountain. Cocoa Leaf's condition worsened, and at one point he lost his footing, nearly pulling everyone with him into a ravine. Blunted, positioned near the front, dug his foot into a tree root and strained with all his strength to keep the group from falling. Middle Eye simply watched, unmoved, as if the suffering before him was entertainment. Though they survived the moment, the cruelty did not end. Once they reached stable ground, Cocoa Leaf was untied and pushed into the ravine below. His life ended there. Meanwhile, Seven remained trapped in the dry well with her child. She held on with whatever hope she had left, though she knew time was slipping away. That night, Zero Wolf celebrated his son's coming of age. Cut Rock was praised and given a ceremonial blade, a symbol that he was now considered a man, ready to become a hunter of men just like his father. But while others celebrated, Jaguar Paw looked to the sky. Thunder rolled in the distance. Rain was coming. If water filled the well, his wife and child would not survive. The thought tormented him. The next morning, the journey continued. A massive tree crashed down near the captives, nearly killing them. They survived, but the danger around them felt closer than ever. Shortly after, they came upon a young girl sitting beside the body of her mother. Her face was smeared with dirt and tears. When the soldiers pushed her away, something changed in her expression. Her voice grew steady and her eyes sharp. She spoke of destruction to come. She warned them to fear the darkening sky and the man who runs with the jaguar. He would bring the end. Eventually, the captives reached the heart of Maya's civilization. What lay before them was a city built on suffering, thin bodies, pale faces, and hollow eyes. People worked without rest, grinding white limestone until their lungs bled. Disease spread through the crowded streets. The stench of decay clung to the air. Among the misery, a frail old man begged one of the captives, not to be rescued, but to be killed, to escape the pain of living one more day in that place. Soon all the male captives were covered in blue paint. It was a mark, a sign that they were being prepared for sacrifice. The women, on the other hand, were traded like goods, auctioned and sold one by one. Only those considered too old were left behind, seen as worthless. Blunted's mother-in-law was among them, released with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. The fear deepened as the captives were forced through a dark gateway. Along the walls were carvings of suffering and death, images that were not just symbols, but warnings of what awaited them at the altar. The horror became real when they stepped into the heart of the city. This was no ordinary settlement. Before them towered a massive stone pyramid stained with the red of old blood. It was the sacred site of worship to the sun god they called Kukulkan. At the top of the pyramid sat the king, the queen, and their young heir, watching from high above as the ritual unfolded below. Thousands of people gathered, chanting, singing, and dancing in one unified voice. But beneath the celebration was a brutal reality. This city survived on human blood. One by one, sacrifices were made at the top of the pyramid. Chests were cut open, hearts still beating were lifted to the sky, and severed heads were sent tumbling down the stone steps. The crowd cheered. Mothers even took the blood and smeared it onto the foreheads of their infants, believing it was a blessing from the sun god. Then the moment of terror reached the captives. They were forced to climb the steps. There was no turning back. Before the crowd, the high priest declared that sickness had weakened the city, but they would not allow themselves to be seen as weak. To prove their strength, more blood must be given to the sun. One by one, the sacrifices continued. Jaguar Paul could do nothing but watch as his friend was laid on the altar. In an instant, his chest was opened, his heart raised to the sky, and his head removed. The cheering grew louder. Then came Jaguar Paul's turn. His expression was empty as he approached death. Far away, his wife, still trapped in the dry well, felt a deep dread. She knew something was happening to him, and she hoped with all her heart that he would return. Just when the blade was raised above Jaguar Paul, the sky began to darken. Slowly, the sun disappeared behind the moon. An eclipse. The people did not understand what they were witnessing. Panic spread instantly. The priests interpreted it as a divine message. The sun god had been satisfied. No more blood was needed. Jaguar Paul was spared. But survival did not mean freedom. The remaining captives were taken out of the city and led to an open field. There, Zero Wolf had prepared a cruel game, a game with only one possible ending: death. Before the deadly game began, Zero Wolf sent his son to stand at the far edge of the field. His task was simple. Anyone who managed to reach the cornfield had to be killed. The rules of the game were cruel. The captives had to run across the open field. If they reached the forest beyond the corn, they would be free. Blunted and another man were the first to run. They sprinted with everything they had, pushing down their fear. But arrows, spears, and stones rained down on them without mercy. Within seconds, they collapsed in the grass. Their escape ended almost as soon as it began. Next came Jaguar Paw and one other captive. They tried a different approach, weaving in a zigzag to confuse the archers. For a moment, it seemed like the strategy might work. Then an arrow struck Jaguar Paw's companion in the face, dropping him instantly. Another arrow hit Jaguar Paw in the side, knocking him to the ground. He was alive, but badly wounded. Cut Rock stepped forward with a blade, ready to finish him. But in that desperate moment, Blunted, barely clinging to life, crawled forward to create a distraction. It was just enough. Jaguar Paw forced himself up, grabbed the arrow stuck in his own body, and drove it into Cut Rock's neck. Zero Wolf's beloved son fell where all could see. Zero Wolf rushed to him, but it was already too late. Grief turned instantly to rage. Jaguar Paw staggered to his feet and ran into the cornfield. The hunt began. Jaguar Paw ran as fast as his injured body would allow, pushing through pain and exhaustion. But in the chaos of his escape, he stumbled into a pit filled with decapitated bodies. The stench of decay hit him like a wave. It was a horrifying reminder of what awaited him if he was caught. There was no time to react. He forced himself out of the pit and kept moving. His breathing grew heavy. His steps slowed. Eventually, he climbed a tree, hiding in the branches as the hunters passed beneath him. For a moment, it seemed he had escaped. Then droplets of blood from his wound fell to the ground. Just as he thought he might catch his breath, a soft growl came from behind him. A young jaguar cub was nearby, and watching from the shadows was its mother. The great cat stared at him, muscles tensed, ready to strike. Meanwhile, the hunters noticed blood on Middle Eye's back. It was proof that Jaguar Paw was close, hiding above. They spread out and moved in. Suddenly, the sound of frantic running rushed toward them. They assumed it was Jaguar Paw and formed a trap. And they were right. Jaguar Paw came crashing through the foliage, but not alone. The jaguar was right behind him. The beast launched itself at the hunters. Panic broke instantly. Spears and blades swung wildly as they fought for their lives. The jaguar was eventually killed, but its death left the hunters shaken. Killing such a creature was considered a curse, a sign of terrible fate. The words of the young girl they met earlier echoed in their minds. The sky will darken. A man running with the jaguar will bring your end. Some wanted to stop the hunt. Fear was growing, but Zero Wolf refused to listen. To him, superstition meant nothing. There was only one goal left. He would not stop until Jaguar Paw was dead. The chase did not stop. Even as night fell, Jaguar Paw kept running. When he finally felt the danger fade behind him, he tried to rest. But the faint glow of torches soon flickered between the trees. The hunters were still coming. He had no choice but to move again. By morning, one of the warriors spotted Jaguar Paw's tracks. But before he could alert the others, he was bitten by a venomous snake. Zero Wolf did not stop for him. There was no mourning, no hesitation. The dying man was left behind as the hunt continued. Jaguar Paw pushed forward. Arrows and spears sliced through the air only inches from him. He ran toward the edge of a cliff where a river roared below. The drop was steep. Behind him, the hunters closed in. There were only two outcomes now: die by their hands or take the leap. He jumped. Zero Wolf believed the fall would finish him, but Jaguar Paw surfaced downstream, gasping but alive. He turned to face his pursuers from the water below. This was his home. He knew this land. The forest belonged to him now. Zero Wolf's anger only grew. When one of his own suggested turning back, Zero Wolf killed him on the spot. Then he led the others down the cliffs. One of them died on impact, but the rest survived. The chase continued. Jaguar Paw ran deeper into the forest, but this time he sank into quicksand. His body was pulled down inch by inch. He fought with everything he had and finally dragged himself free, now covered in thick mud. And in that moment, he understood. He could not keep escaping. The only way to live was to fight. Emerging from the brush, he faced the hunters again. In his hand was a hornet nest. He hurled it at them, and chaos erupted as the enraged insects attacked. Now Jaguar Paw was no longer a fleeing captive. He was the hunter. He found a poisonous frog and coated sharp thorns with its venom. Then he carefully laid false tracks, marking a fake trail before circling back to hide. When the hunters followed the signs, Jaguar Paw struck. 3 poisoned thorns flew into one of them. Within seconds, the man collapsed. Middle Eye heard the cries and turned back. And there, among the trees, Jaguar Paw stood waiting. The fight was unavoidable. Middle Eye charged with his axe, swinging wildly. Jaguar Paw dodged, slipping beneath the strikes, and grabbed another axe from the ground. With one powerful swing, he brought it down on Middle Eye's head. But time was running out. Rain began to pour heavily, and the dry well where Seven and her child were hiding slowly started to fill with water. Seven went into labor. With every passing moment, the water rose higher. Jaguar Paw ran with everything he had, racing against time to save his family. Life and death were now separated only by the rising water. Deep in the forest, the hunt reached its final moment. Jaguar Paw faced Zero Wolf. An arrow pierced Jaguar Paw's chest, knocking him down, but he forced himself back up. He refused to fall. When Zero Wolf charged forward, he stepped right into a trap, the same kind once used to hunt tapirs. It struck with deadly precision, and Zero Wolf was killed. Meanwhile, the well continued to fill. Seven, heavily pregnant and exhausted, stood on a stone, lifting her young son onto her shoulders to keep him above the water. In the middle of the storm, surrounded by danger, she gave birth to their second child. Jaguar Paw kept running, still pursued by the remaining hunters until he reached the edge of the coastline. But there, an unexpected sight stopped everyone in their tracks. Large ships were anchored offshore. Strangers in unfamiliar clothing stepped onto the beach. Foreign soldiers. Their presence stunned the hunters, as if they were witnessing a world they never knew existed. Jaguar Paw used the moment to escape. He ran back through the forest to the well. His heart pounded as he looked down and saw them alive, his wife holding their newborn child in the storm. The relief was overwhelming, but it came with sorrow. They were the only ones left. Their entire tribe was gone. Jaguar Paw chose to return with his family into the forest, to start again, to rebuild what was lost. Behind them, on the horizon, the enormous ships remained, marking the arrival of a new age. It was not only the end of Jaguar Paw's pursuit, but the beginning of a chapter that would reshape their world forever. So the moral of the story is even the strongest hearts can break. Because sometimes the world takes everything you love and still asks you to keep going.